So, kind of coming off of that note on not eating processed food, it brings me to another point. Beware of processed, especially beware of processed gluten-free foods. Okay, so aside from the fact that they're not really gluten-free, most of these are not gluten-free. They're, again, if you know the difference between the traditional gluten-free diet and the true gluten-free diet, you'll catch that. And if you don't know the difference, make sure you sign up for my master class. It's coming on February 22nd. We've officially stamped the date. It's February 22nd. It's 14 hours. It's free. All you have to do is sign up. We'll put that link up right now in the feed. That's glutenfreesociety.org/masterclass. If you don't know what a traditional gluten-free diet is versus a true gluten-free diet, you definitely want to get that, plus much, much more information on how to navigate the gluten-free diet in a healthy way. And that class is free to you. We'll be airing it on February 22nd. So again, gluten-free foods are not always gluten-free. They're also high carbohydrate. So they increase blood sugar because they're high carb. Some of them increase blood sugar because the carb is sugar, right? Now, you don't have to have sugar to increase blood sugar. You can overconsume carbs, and that will also increase blood sugar. So even if you're eating, for example, rice is not sugar, right? But the carbohydrate in rice easily breaks down into sugar, and that can increase your blood sugar levels, especially the white rice. But beyond the fact that it's technically not gluten-free, and again, if that's new news to you, make sure you sign up for that master class. So increasing blood sugar. Now, what does increasing blood sugar do? Increasing blood sugar causes inflammation. What did we say in the very beginning? We said that inflammation is the precursor to heart disease. We also know increasing blood sugar increases blood pressure. When you add sugar to your blood, it increases the blood viscosity, makes your blood more thick. Your heart has to then beat harder, beat stronger to pump that thicker blood or that sludgy blood or that syrupy blood through your body. So inflammation and increases in blood pressure spell disaster for cardiovascular illness. And this is why patients with diabetes are oftentimes treated by doctors as if they have heart disease too. So they put them on statins to lower the cholesterol. They put them on blood pressure medicines just in case many times, even if their blood pressure is not high. We also know these gluten-free foods, okay, they can cause weight gain. And part of that is through this carbohydrate toxicity. Remember that too much sugar converts to triglycerides in the blood. When your body gets too many carbohydrates, it doesn't know what to do with them. It's really good at storing sugar. If you're not using that sugar up as in a form of energy, your body will convert it into triglycerides. Now, increase in triglycerides is an increase in the risk for heart disease. So it increases risk of heart disease at the same time. So we know that excessive carbohydrate in the form of all these processed foods can elevate your triglycerides and increase, again, the risk for the development of heart disease as well. But those triglycerides are fat, right? And so what happens when you've got too many triglycerides floating around in your bloodstream is your body will store those triglycerides in your fat cells, and that can lead to weight gain. We also know these processed foods lack nutritional density. You have to understand the history of grain in the country. So if we're looking at like corn-based products or rice-based products, which are the two most commonly marketed gluten-free substitutes, you understand that it's illegal to sell processed grain in the U.S. It's illegal. Why? Why is it illegal? Historically, in 1943, corn and rice were responsible for killing about 8,000 people annually because the processed versions of these would actually cause pellagra, which is a disease that can mimic heart disease, but also beriberi, as I mentioned earlier. So pellagra is a B3 deficiency. Beriberi is a B1 deficiency, and the U.S. government had to step in and say, from now on, you're not going to be able to sell the processed grain products unless you fortify them with these B vitamins. So they have to be fortified. In essence, the food was so dangerous and such a poison, responsible for killing thousands of people a year, that the only way that they could continue to be sold was if you fortified them. Unfortunately, the fortification was done through a bunch of synthetic junk vitamins, and so maybe it led to some reduction of the presence of these things, but what it actually did was it led to the greater degree of consumption of processed grain, which as a general rule of thumb is very, very unhealthy to consume. Whether you're gluten-free or not, processed grain is not healthy. Because one of the other things, so aside from fortifying with B1, B3, one of the other things they use is iron filament. And iron filament, when you fortify with oxidative iron, this can actually create problems, health issues, oxidative damage. Iron filaments can create oxidative damage to the heart. Iron is a very reactive metal, and it can create a free radical component and induce oxidative damage to blood vessels. And so iron fortification of these grains, in my opinion, was a bad idea, and the quality of the iron they're using is poor as well. We also know that processed supposed gluten-free foods can also be cross-contaminated with gluten. So if you are gluten sensitive, remember, it only takes 20 ppm, that's the size of a breadcrumb, that's ppm, that stands for parts per million. So it doesn't take much cross-contamination of gluten to create an inflammatory response as a result of that exposure. And then we also know that these processed grains contain chemical fillers known to contribute to inflammation. A perfect example of one of the chemical fillers associated with inflammation is in a lot of these processed foods is MSG. Another one is meat glue. Meat glue, also known as microbial transglutaminase, is an additive in food that doesn't have to be listed on the food ingredients label, that we absolutely are certain creates inflammation and leaky gut and other health problems. So MSG and meat glue are just two of the many toxic compounds that are food fillers in these things. And so that, if you're eating a lot of processed gluten-free foods, it comes with all of these things and can increase your risk, again, for the development of cardiovascular health problems. If you aren't aware of that, you need to be aware of that, because again, this is where most people, when they get a diagnosis of celiac disease, they generally walk out of the hospital with a bag of goodies, and that bag of goodies is typically a bunch of processed garbage food, processed grains. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below, and as always, thanks for tuning in.